The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera Thomas Show. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Oh. Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to have my guest tonight. And we're going to be talking about something that may be a little um, touchy, but grief is real. How people deal with grief is could be different, but just because it's different does not mean that we need to minimize it or diminish it. Grief is real. And before I start with our conversation, let me share a little bit about Miss Danielle Ross. Danielle is a certified grief coach that wears many hats, from entrepreneur, graduate student, to becoming a Christian single mom to her daughter that has special needs. Danielle has a passion to love on and encourage others by sharing her faith, her experiences, and by turning her pain into a purpose. She is the founder of Hope's Legacy Grief Support, a virtual life coaching business. Her niche is helping people get unstuck after difficult seasons in their lives. Danielle enjoys helping and supporting people on their journey of healing, especially during times of loss. She wants to help people feel less alone and remind people of God's love for them and provision after painful events in their lives. And with that, Danielle, I'm going to give you the floor. And because parents and children are my platform, I ask all my guests to share what was your childhood like and how did it impact you? And just share as much as the Holy Spirit will lead you to share.
Yes, that's a very good question. So for me, I am an only child, which I know is rare. Hello to everyone that's listening. I was just backing up a little bit. But growing up, I just felt like it was kind of me, myself, and I. My mom has always struggled due to chronic conditions. And so I felt like in many ways, I was kind of left to raise myself. She did the best that she could with what she had, with her resources, what she was faced with. But there were so many times where I remember, being dropped off at school, and then I'd be at school, things would happen. I take the bus. I got a job at like 15, 16, my first job. I take the bus to my job, be there for a couple hours, come home and do homework, or just take the bus. And it was an hour waiting, an hour or two for the bus, then take an hour bus ride home, and then pretty much taking care of myself. My dad, I saw him when he wanted to see me. Pretty much he moved on with his life after my parents got divorced around when I was about 8 years old. And we've always had a strained relationship until his passing, which was about 3 years ago now, which I'll talk a little bit more during this episode overall. But just realizing that when I faced grief as a child, whether it was having to move suddenly after my parents got divorced, we lived in someone's converted garage. We always had losses in our family. People would pass away 3 at a time, and no one would ever talk to me about the loss. It was just something that I just had to, attend the funeral and get over it. And no one really told me about processing grief. And now as an adult, I'm learning that I'm like, no one really taught me how to grieve, that I don't just have to move forward, within my 2 or 3 bereavement days I'm given on my job, that grief can be ongoing, and that my journey is unique, and all of our journeys are unique as we're facing grief. But overall, I'm realizing that everything that's happened before in my childhood has shaped me into the person that I am today. It has been rough. It has been a lot of difficult experiences, but I see God's hand in the midst of it. And because of it, it gives me a way to share my experiences and encourage and give other people hope.
That's beautiful. And I raised a only child as well. And I know only children, having only one child is kind of rare, but I'm sorry that your childhood was such where you felt alone and you felt lonely. Um, but it shaped you into becoming an entrepreneur, a
Mhm.
graduate student, and a
Mhm.
single mom. So,
Yes.
what are you currently in school?
Yes, I'm going to be starting school again. So I've always been in school. I started college when I was a teenager. I just started taking a course here, a course there, whether it's photography or
Oh my
something else. And
goodness.
now I'm going back to school to become a teacher. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you're an entrepreneur, so do you have other businesses that you're doing as well as the coaching business?
Yeah, so the coaching business is the main focus right now. I've done a little bit of everything from being a notary to other business ventures. But right now, I'm like, okay, God's called me to just focus on one thing because I love doing 10 things at once. And I'm like, okay, let's focus on one thing and do it well. And right now, just focusing on that, just on coaching overall. And also too, kind of something new I'm adding is becoming a bereavement doula. So they're going hand in hand with the grief coaching.
So tell me more about the bereavement doula.
Yes. So bereavement doula, a lot of people are like, what is that? A lot of people know about birth doulas, but many people do not know about bereavement doulas. So for me specifically, I want to work with families that are facing a loss of their child. So maybe their child, they know that there's going to be a miscarriage or they're going to have to deliver early, knowing that their child will not live that long. And I want to support people and families in the midst of that. That's been my story. So I've lost 2 children by way of miscarriage. And I remember the doulas that I had were just life giving and a blessing. And so that's what I want to focus on specifically. There's also end of life doulas that sit with people like when they're on hospice or they know that family member is going to pass away. But for me, I want to specifically work with families that are knowing that they're going to lose their children because that's something that's close to my heart.
Wow. And you have a special needs child, your daughter?
Yes. So my daughter is 7 and she has a variety of different conditions. She had her first seizure when she was 1 years old. And so it has been a battle to get her officially diagnosed. But now she will be turning 8. And my daughter she has epilepsy, ADHD, and autism.
Oh, I know that is a challenge for you as a mother. Do you have any support with this?
Um, I do have some support. I have family, but as you know, it can be challenging to really get family to understand. So it's educating them on what she's facing. So I have worked on and off with children that have special needs for a couple years. So what she's going through, I'm familiar with. It's nothing new, but realizing that also is a source of grief. So for those that are out there that are, whether you're raising a child on your own or raising a child or children that have special needs, that is a real type of grief that no one talks about. And it's unfortunate, especially in church. No one, really discusses it. But for me, I have some family support, but a lot of it is just, it's me and God. And we take it one day at a time because I don't know what each day is going to hold. And he's been so faithful. He's been so good. Some days are better than others. But just in the midst of it, I do have family close by, but knowing that I can't always depend on them as much as I'd like. I'll leave it at that. And I'm sure many people that are listening or that are watching understand what I mean, where you're like, we love family, sometimes from a distance, and sometimes, family won't always understand. So, yeah.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Now, let's talk about your company. And I'm going to pull it up right quick. So let me pull it up, and you tell us more about it, and then we're going to get into the a deep dive into grief and the impact that it can have. Okay, and now before the show, we did this and it worked just fine. Okay, there it is.
Okay, now it's working. We have it. Yeah,
Okay, yes,
it's technology for you. Yes. So a
yes.
little bit about my company is I started Hope's Legacy Grief Support. Um, really realizing that we don't talk enough about grief. As many people know, our culture, our age, our faith background, there's so many things that impacts how we deal with grief. And I realized that so many people are grieving. And I started this business, one, to keep my daughter's legacy alive. So Hope is, baby Hope was my first daughter, who was born sleeping about 9 years ago. It's my first miscarriage, and starting it
Oh,
to cherish her memory, but then also to create a safe space for people to be honest about their grief, to really say this hurts right now, or I'm being told to just get over it and I can't get over it, and helping people that are stuck in their grief, or people that just want someone to talk to. Like I spoke to a woman recently. It was unfortunate. Life was good for her, she was happy, she was in a relationship, and then all of a sudden her whole world turned upside down. She got in a really bad car accident, ended up miscarrying her baby that she had. The person she was in the car accident with was the love of her life. And after the car accident, she found out that he had cancer. He passed away within less than a year of that loss. And then now she's faced with so many challenges. She can't go back to work. She's trying to figure out how to forgive that person that's caused the accident, as that person is completely fine, but she's not able to work and be as mobile and do other things. And we were just talking about it. And we just created a safe space for her to be honest and to validate her feelings, which I love doing, and just providing that listening ear, because I realize a lot of people have no one to listen to them. They just have to stuff down how they're feeling.
And you know what? I want to talk about validating feelings, because to tell someone to get over it, that is not
Mhm.
validating feelings. To tell people,
Yeah.
oh, this too shall pass, and it does, but that is no way of validating feelings. And people need to be able to express how they're feeling, because through that expression is cathartic, and it will enable
Yes.
them to begin to look at how they can better adjust to all of the loss. Now, you mentioned
Yes.
a couple of losses that was happening with this lady. She not only lost her health, her baby,
Mhm.
her love, her job, and all of those are areas of grief. And I
Yes.
want to I want to look at the stages of grief. And, we're on several platforms. And so there may be people listening and they're not able to chime in right now. But if you are listening and you're able to chime in, please do so. And also, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Vera Thomas Show. Now, let's talk about these stages. And also, one of the things that I've done in my career has been outplacement, where people were losing their jobs and we came in to help them transition from the job they had into something else. And what I found, the first stage of grief is tell us.
Yes. So the first stage of grief is denial. And I wrote them down. So you see me looking to the side. I want to make sure I get them perfect. But the first stage of grief is denial. And it's when you hear something like this person has passed away, you've just been laid off, whatever it might be, your house has burned down, unfortunately, whatever it is that you're facing. And I do want to bring that up too. A lot of people just associate grief with the physical loss of a person, a pet,
Right.
or something like that. But it can be a loss of an item. Like, for example, in my case, I lost everything in my storage a couple months back, and it was things that I cannot replace. And it was
Oh, how did
heartbreaking. And
how
it
did
was
you
just
lose?
going. It's a
Wow.
long story. So my storage is in another state, and something happened to where,
Oh.
everything is gone. So I've had to kind of
Oh.
rebuild, and it was keepsakes from my daughter. It was my dad's shirt.
Oh.
It was just little things, and in it, I had to grieve the loss of that, and it was okay. A lot of people say, "No, it's just objects. You can just buy a new
No.
this." You're like, "No, they were important to me." It was pictures, family pictures, important
Yeah.
documents. And so things
Oh.
happened. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. I'll spare you the whole story, but realizing it's in that then those moments where it's that denial, when you first get that phone call, when you first realize that something that was important to you, that relationship, a friendship, as I said, at that job, an item that was important to you, you could just drop a piece of food and say, okay, I'm sad about that because I'm running low on funds and I really wanted that meal.
Yes.
All of these
Yes.
things come
Yes.
with grief. A lot of people
Yes.
say, "Oh, that's trivial," and you're like, "No, this is important to me." But
No.
that first stage is going through denial and realize that with all these stages of grief, you can always go between the stages. It's not like I just move
Yes.
forward from tomorrow and I
Yes.
graduate to the next
Yes.
stage. I
Yes.
can
Yes.
be in denial when, I listen to a person's voicemail. I call, like with my dad sometimes, I recorded his voicemail. So I just might listen to it and it doesn't feel real. And I'm like, oh, my dad is not here anymore. When I see Father's
Right.
Day cards in the store, I'm like, oh, I won't be buying a Father's Day card because he's not here. And sometimes I'm
Right.
like, it just doesn't feel real, doesn't seem real. So,
Right, exactly. And I know when we did our placement, and we were this one company, the equipment, as we were doing this training, the equipment was literally leaving the building. And everyone's sitting there, oh, they did this before. This is not going to happen. They're just talking. The equipment is leaving the building, but they
yes.
just didn't get, and these were people that had been on this job for 15, 20, 30 years. And so that
Wow.
grief, that denial, was the first thing. And I remember I had a dog, right? And I had made this roast and I left it on the top of the stove, and when I got home, this dog is sitting back in his glory and my beef is gone. And I went through stages of
Mhm.
grief, just
It
like what
hurts.
you were saying.
Yes.
It's like this was
Mhm. It's
all we
real. It is
had.
real.
Yes.
Yeah.
So stages of grief are real.
Yes.
So denial is first. And then the next
Mhm.
one is, I'm going to let you share because I do know what
Anger.
these stages are. Anger. Yes.
Yes.
Anger.
And it's
Especially like you lose,
normal.
and it's normal. It is normal. So don't feel like you're out of order or out of sync because you were in denial. And then you became very angry. And it could be angry that a loved one is gone, angry that the relationship is gone, angry that the job is gone, angry that some items may be gone that you can't get back. I can so relate to your story about your storage. I left Georgia and I had no choice but to leave so much behind. And the thing I
Yes.
valued most were my books. And I just had
Yes.
books that I had accumulated, books that I had written or co-written, and all they're all gone. And so
I'm
I've
sorry. Yeah,
experienced
that's
stages of
heartbreaking.
grief. It is heartbreaking. And every now and then I still think about it, and that was a year ago, but I still think about all the things I lost. But it's okay. I'm not angry. But so we go through that denial, then the anger, and then what happens after anger.
Yes, we have denial, anger, and bargaining. And I know bargaining
Yes.
is one that's common, especially if someone is sick. You say, well, God, if I will never do this again, if you save this person, I won't do this or go here if you do this, if you save me from this. And so a lot of times we try and bargain and barter and barter pretty much with God. It works sometimes in real life when it comes to items or wanting something. And yet it doesn't always work like that. Many times it doesn't when it comes to God. And it's just like, why? Sometimes we get angry and we're just like,
Yes.
well, God, I stopped doing this. So why did you still take this person? I said I was sorry. So why did this happen? I turned my life around. So why does this and this and this keep happening? And bargaining with God. And it doesn't quite work. He's kind to us. He's gracious to us, but realizing I've had to tell myself many times that God doesn't owe me anything. And sometimes in my human thinking and my limited kind of vision of the situations that I'm facing, I'm like, well, God, I did this. So you owe me this. I'm not doing what other people are doing. So, you need to bless me with this. This doesn't seem fair. And so for me personally, like I struggle with infertility, so many things that have happened in my life, and just saying, well, I was in the process of becoming a foster parent and the process has not been going as planned, and saying, well, God, I won't do this, or I'll give this up, or I'll go here, or I'll serve in the children's ministry just so you can give me this or do this. And it has not worked out that way. I've been trying to bargain with God for a while. And I'm like,
I
okay, God, I get it. Everything in his timing.
Yes, everything in his timing. And, everything in his timing. And we just have, sometimes he just wants us to be still and know that God is God. And so, as
Yes.
we're going through these stages of grief, the denial, the anger, the bargaining, and even, with outplacement, there were people that would come up to us and say, well, what can I do? What can I do to keep my job? What can I do? And there's nothing that can be done. The company is either closing or selling or something that allowed
Yeah.
that caused a mass layoff. And that very same thing could very well happen again in the very near future. And so this particular show, I feel, is very timely because we are grieving a lot of stuff right now. And as there may be people that are grieving what's going on with our country, and
Yes.
all of the losses that we're experiencing. People that have lost their jobs in the federal government, they're grieving. Trust me. They're going through grief because there was no reason for some of the things that are happening. And so that grief is real, man. It is real. Okay, I'm good. All
It's
right.
so
So
true.
so we talked about denial, anger, bartering. And what's that next one?
Yes, depression. And depression
Yeah.
is normal. And I want to really, really speak up regarding that, because in church, we really don't talk about depression enough. And we
Hmm.
see it and it's there. And I want to let people know to, don't let people throw their Bibles at you or tell you, oh, because if you had bigger faith, you wouldn't be depressed. Oh, it's all in your head. Oh, you don't need counselor, you don't need help. But realize depression is real and it's not all in your head. And it is a normal reaction to something happening in your life. And a lot of people say, well, I should be happy. I don't know why I'm not happy. Realize there can be a chemical imbalance. It could be so many things going on. So don't let someone say, oh, well, just pray more. Oh, just have more faith. Oh, well, because you're not content. That's why you're going through this. And just realizing, no, I can feel depressed. For me, I'm a single person. And as a Christian person and being single and where I am, there's a lot of people are married, coupled up, and it's hard. I've gone through a divorce, and that can cause depression. And so realizing that many people that are listening or watching have faced so many things in your life, whether it's things that happened 10 years ago, 10 months ago, 10 days ago, that cause depression. And depression is not just something, oh, I just went to sleep, I woke up and it's gone. Some people say they're healed from it. I don't know, in every situation on, what God's plan is in all of that. But I realize that it's something that does need treatment. It's something that you can seek help for. And it's someone that you can talk to someone about. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're less of a Christian, that God is punishing you, nothing like that. But it's real. And it's okay to seek help, to talk to people and find someone that's safe, whether maybe even it's a hotline, 988, just call someone. Maybe it's 988. I don't want to say 998, but I think it's 988. create, but just any place you can reach out to. They have so many things now where you could just speak to someone anonymously by way of text, by way of phone, by way of chat, whatever it is, to just seek help. So don't suffer in silence. Please don't.
Absolutely. And where depression is concerned, there are different types of depression. Now, there is the
Hmm.
depression that is caused by a chemical imbalance, which may
Yes.
require medication. And then there's that depression that is triggered by events. You may have been a very positive, uplifting, happy person. I was. But then I had a situation where I was in a position that I absolutely loved, really making a difference in a community. And it was a contract position, and I was serving as an interim director. And I was doing really, things were just really moving really great. But the person that
Yeah.
actually had the contract had an issue with the fact that people were coming to me instead of them. And
Hmm.
and because of whatever he did, the whole contract was ended. Okay, and I had just bought a car. I had
Yes.
just bought a
So
car.
hard.
And
Yeah.
oh my God. So loss of the job, loss
Yeah.
of the car, and loss of my apartment. And I ended up having to stay with a family member. And when, with all those losses, I'm not usually a depressing, depression is not in me. I don't usually get depressed. But during that time, I was depressed. And as a result of that
Yes.
depression, I had to really work at pulling myself up out of that, and I did read scriptures, and I often would constantly say in my mouth, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength, and I would say that over
Mhm.
again, and just try to get back to me, but when you, and the depression may be temporary, it may be more than temporary. And if that is the case, then seeking help is very important. It's very important. There is nothing wrong with seeking counseling or coaching when you are feeling a certain kind of way. Sometimes we can't see
Yes.
the forest for the trees, and we need someone that can objectively help us through that process of healing, which is what you do. And that's beautiful.
Yes.
Uh, okay, and so we've got denial, we've got anger, we've got bargaining, and then we've got depression. Now, the next stage of grief, and now these stages, you may be bargaining one day and then back in denial the next. Or you may be in denial and then you get into depression.
Yes.
It vacillates. You may be angry one minute and then depressed the next because of all the emotions that are involved in grief. And again, it could be any kind of loss, any kind of loss can generate
Yeah.
grief. Loss of an animal, loss of a relationship, loss of a family, loss of a job, loss of benefits in our society. All of these things can cause grief. So once we've
Yes.
gotten past the depression, the next step is what?
Yes, the next step, and usually, hopefully, is the final step for many. It's acceptance. And I know acceptance can be really, really hard because it's really the point where you have to face the music and just say, this is over. This person's maybe not coming back. This person will, just thinking about it, just really saying, okay, now it's time to maybe possibly move forward, and actually coming to terms with that loss and saying, okay, I faced something horrific. I faced something horrible. My life's been turned upside down, but I'm accepting this. I'm moving forward. acknowledging how I feel and taking intentional steps to move forward. And one example, I always have lots of stories, which is thinking about the relationship I was in for a couple years and dating someone that was a functional alcoholic. And in the midst of all of that, that person, which just kind of popped in and out of my life every 6 months to a year. And so with the last time, I had to really say, okay, the last time was the last time. That person made it very clear that I was never going to be his first choice, and that what I was looking for in a relationship, he would never be ready for, and he wasn't looking for. And the last time I, told him, hey, do not call me anymore. I'm moving forward with my life, because every time that person came into my life, it caused anger, it caused that depression, it caused the denial. You're like, maybe this time, this is the fourth or fifth time, it'll be better. But I made the last time, have not been in contact with that person for months, and really saying, okay, this person has moved forward. He's had a baby with someone else, all of these things happening. He intentionally went back to, his ex while supposedly talking to me and saying, okay, God. And I said, well, God, maybe if, I just do this, if I just stay longer, I bargained with God, all of these different things. I got angry, everything that you can think of in the midst of it. Like I said, I was in denial, but had to really come to it and say, accepting that this person can never be what I need them to be or what I want them to be. It's time for me to move forward. And I close that chapter, accepting it and moving forward. But it took intentional steps. It took time. It took pain. It took tears. It took sacrifices. It took letting go of things that were comfortable to move into the better and the more that God had for me.
And all those things that you experienced in that relationship, God was telling you this is not the one. He was
Oh,
telling you
yes.
that. And I know your heart was in it, but you said he was an alcoholic. And that's not what God wants for you. And you
Yeah.
may not have recognized it at the time, but God made provision so that you would not have to subject yourself to the ramifications of an alcoholic, and I realize there are different
Yes.
types of alcoholics. There's the happy alcoholic who just wants to talk and
Mhm.
laugh and have fun. But then you got that other side where you don't know what bag they're going to come out of as a result of alcohol.
Yes.
It is truly poison. I mean, I drink wine, you know, but and I used to drink, and I was one of those happy drunks. At the time, I was a happy drunk. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't like confusion, but I also recognize that. I mean, now it's not even give me my wine and I'm good. Okay, but alcoholism can how people are during the course of being inebriated can
Mhm.
cause much grief.
Yes.
So even attitudes and behaviors of others that are in our circle can cause us grief. So it can be
Yes.
somebody living, and they can cause grief. And if you are around someone that makes you feel like that causes you to grieve, then maybe that's not the person you need to be with. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes.
And so I'm glad that you were able to recognize, even though your heart was in it, you were able to recognize, and you probably went through the stages of grief with this relationship.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
you're
Yes.
angry because he's not what you need him to be. But you can't change him,
Yes.
because we cannot change anyone but ourselves. And so I say kudos to you
Mhm.
for recognizing. And then you also talked
Thank you.
about having difficulty with your pregnancies. And I can relate to that. I had three doctors tell me I would never have kids. Three.
Yeah.
But God. after I
Yes,
got
but God,
married,
yes.
after I got married and had surgery, I ended up with one child. I had a couple of miscarriages, but thank God for my son. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I can so identify with so much of your story where grief is concerned, having lost both my sisters within a 3-year period of time, but they were both diagnosed with cancer at the same time. And that brought about
Wow.
grief. And then my niece, my brother's oldest daughter, right after both our sisters passed, she was diagnosed with cancer and died a year later. So at the age of
Oh,
38.
no.
Yes, and
That's so
so and my
young.
yes, and my brother, you know, it's been 4 or 5 years now, and he's still. I mean, the grief never leaves, But we need to be able to
Yes.
cope with it and do what you were saying, that acceptance. We have to accept those things we cannot change and change the things that we can. And the only thing that we can change is not so much the grief, but how we move forward. We can change. So I want you to kind of talk about, once you've gotten when you have that acceptance, then you also have that hope, which is what we're
Yes.
talking about. Hope through grief. So, what are some of the things that I can put in the chat that would allow people to kind of deal with their grief and get past it?
Yes, good question. So I first want to start off with the definition of hope because I wanted to look it up. Different people look at it differently, but a more kind of I was looking at more biblical definition. So I'm finding out that the word hope is mentioned almost about 130 times in the Bible. And I'm like, then that means that God wants to get our attention because I'm like, it's not just mentioned 2 times, not 10 times, not 50 times, but almost 130 times. So I'm like, okay, God is trying to tell us something. And hope can be defined as a confident expectation that God will fulfill his promises in the future and that we can trust his character. We know that he is faithful. And I know sometimes it's hard being reminded that we look at the Bible and we're like, well, that was them in the Bible. That's not for us. But just for me right now, in the midst of everything that I am facing, it seems like it's one thing after another thing, whether it's things happening to me directly or you say the economy, things happening externally that I have no control over, things happening with family, things happening regarding my job, regarding my health, other things, and just realizing that I know God's character. I know him to be faithful. And I know we have, our songs we listen to on the radio, and you're like, oh, yeah, I know it says it in the song. But I'm like, if God was faithful before, he literally will be faithful again. So just being reminded of that we can have hope because he's that one constant that we have, that one person that does not change, that we don't have to put our hope in our circumstances, because if we do, we'll never have hope. We'll always be disappointed. But we can
Yes.
put our hope in God, who does not
Yes.
disappoint. We might feel disappointment. We might have times of disappointment. I know from experience. But in that, it's not like God is, like I said, he's not like this punishment, saying, okay, that he's just sitting up there, in heaven, just laughing at us, just watching us drown. That's not what he does.
No,
I was
and
reading that Bible verse. Is let's see, I wrote it down. Oh, how God, it says, the Lord is close to those that are brokenhearted. So Psalm 34:18. And that's just a Cliff Notes version of, there's still more to that verse, but being
well, and
reminded that he's close to us. What were you saying, Miss Vera?
yes, two things come to mind. First of all, that song, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus
Yes,
Christ and
amen.
his righteousness." That came to me.
Amen.
And the second thing that came to me, or actually the first thing that came to me before that came to me, was the Bible. People don't understand. It is the living word. You made reference
Mm-hmm.
to people saying, well, that happened back in the day. No, it is the living word. And what I have found, for me, it speaks to me. Whatever I am going through, I don't even have to, all I have to do is like say, okay, Lord, what do you have for me to hear today? What is it that I need to know?
Yeah.
And open it. And it takes me to where it just it gives me what I need for the time and whatever it is I'm going through. Clear direction. Clear
Yeah.
direction. And I could go on and on and on about clear direction, but I'm telling you, it is the living word. If you want comfort, if you want hope, if you want acceptance, trust his word. And before you
Yes.
even open, pray and just say, okay, Father, what do I need to know today? What do I need to hear today? What do I need to read today? Because his word is a light unto our feet and a lamp unto our path. And so as we're going through grief, what or going through whatever it is we're going through, just know that when you have that spiritual connection with your faith, whatever your faith is. For us, it's the word. But for someone else, it may be the
Yeah.
Quran. For others, it may be the Jewish Bible, or it may be something else. But whatever it is, if it brings light, if it brings hope, you need to focus on that. One of the problems I personally feel that we have today is that we have lost the spiritual connection that we need to make changes, to handle grief, to handle anything that happens in our life. In fact, the scripture says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, seek their face, turn from their wicked ways, and pray,
Mhm.
then will I hear from heaven and heal the land. He's given clear instruction as to what we need to do to get out of this mess that we're in right now in this country and in our lives.
Mhm.
Your
So
turn.
true. Oh, yes, yes. And I do want to acknowledge those that are just feeling hopeless because there's so many things that are going on. I get where it's just one thing after another, one thing after another. You get that, that final notice. Your job, says, "Hey, we're cutting your hours." You get a bad report regarding your health. You find out something else is going on. The check engine light comes on in your car. Something happens. You just go to the grocery store to get something, and you're like, "Was that, this price, or it went up by $2?" It's just things just keep happening. I get it completely. But in the midst of it, I was just telling myself today, I'm like, without God, I don't know what I would do. But just saying, I have no one else to turn to but him. Like, there's no one else I can go to. There's nowhere else I can go to. And just realize that I can only turn to him. I have no other choice. And yet
Uh,
in those moments, he meets us. He really does meet us. When we can't go
yes, he
forward,
does.
go backward, can't go left, can't go right. It's in those moments where he meets us. And you're like,
Yes.
okay, God, what do you want to say to me? I know that you love me. I know that you provided before. I know that you're with me. Your word says that you're close to those that are brokenhearted. You tell us that, that you provide hope to, those that are hopeless. So what do you want to tell me now? What do you want to show me now? But just for those that are feeling like their situation is hopeless, they're like, will I ever smile again? Will I ever have joy again? And then when you are happy again, then you feel guilty for being happy because you're like, no, I should be sad in the midst of this loss. But in this, just
No.
realizing that because we have God, we have hope. You don't have
Yes.
to give up. And if you feel like giving up, like I said, please reach out for help. Please reach out to someone. Like I said, please don't let people make you feel like your faith is small because you are going through things, because you are struggling with this. I realize a lot of people are at different places spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, and so many things. And don't let people, tell you, oh, well, if you had bigger faith, then you wouldn't be handling it like this. Or, my family member got over that in 3 months or 6 months or a year. Aren't you done grieving? Why haven't you gotten over this? Oh, that was an early loss. It wasn't like my loss, but realizing that your journey of grief and also of healing, they're unique to you. So it's not like there's some specific
Absolutely.
timeline that says you have to get over this in 3 months. And then by the 6 month mark, you have to have reached this. And by the 1 year mark, you have to be at acceptance. There's no rule book for that because things happen, especially when you're facing this ongoing grief. As I say, there's so many things that are going on around us. Even if you stay inside, it's really hard to shelter yourself from the rising gas prices, the rising prices when it comes to food, when it comes to your health. And like I'm working with this on my daughter now, and they're trying to cut her insurance in the midst of all of her different medical needs.
Oh
And I'm just like,
man.
what do you do with it? So, but I'm like, but God is good in this. We're going to take it one day at a time. He's going to fight my battles for me. And he's not just doing it for me, he's doing it for you too.
Absolutely. And no
And for those that
weapon,
are
no
listening. So I just
weapon.
want to provide.
Absolutely. No weapon formed against us shall prosper, and every wagging tongue shall be
Amen.
condemned. And we need to stand on that, America. No weapon formed against us shall prosper, and every wagging tongue shall be condemned. And I know clearly your daughter she's one of those that's on disability. Is your daughter on disability?
Not yet. And no, I've been trying to start the process, but at this point, sometimes when you look at the criteria, she's not disabled enough to receive disability. And I know a lot of people are going through that too, not just me. I know they usually deny you the first time, but she's has many different limitations and challenges, has multiple doctors, lots of specialists, but in their eyes, a lot of time she's not disabled enough to receive disability. So it's something that I'm on the pathway to fighting. But once again, that's something else that causes grief. So,
Yes.
just realizing that
Especially
there's
when
so
it's your
many things trying to
child.
get, paperwork signed by doctors. You fax it 3 times. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't get the paperwork." I'm like, "This is the third or the fourth time that I faxed it, and they're not getting it." And you're like, "No, I just need this form so she can receive services." And it's all of these things. And I just said, God is too good because, like I said, you want to shake some people sometimes. You want to scream into your pillow, but just no matter what you're facing, just like, okay, I know that God is faithful. I know that in the midst of it, because we have Him, we have hope through grief. Literally, like the title says, because we have Him, we have hope in the midst of
Yeah.
our grief, in the midst of sometimes the
Yes.
hardest times, things that we think we'll never get through, never get over. We think things will never get better. We say this happened in my childhood, that I'm just doomed to live in the cycle of poverty. I'm just doomed to
No.
end like my parents. I'm doomed to just have what everybody else had. And I'm like, no, we serve a big God that can make the
Yeah.
impossible possible. So, and we hold
Yes.
on to that.
Absolutely. And if we are having those thoughts that you just mentioned, if we are saying those things to ourselves, we are sabotaging ourselves because life and death is in the power of the tongue. So even as we are going through our grief, we need to also speak life into ourselves. And I have a commercial that I'm going to play, and then we're going to come back and talk again. So 1 minute.
Forgiveness is a powerful tool for personal growth, allowing us to let go of resentment and move forward. The key to inner peace and emotional well-being. Apologies and forgiveness go hand in hand, creating space for healing and reconciliation. Inner work and willingness are essential in the process of forgiveness, requiring us to confront our own emotions and vulnerabilities. Taking a broader perspective on actions helps us understand the complexities of human nature and the impact of forgiveness on relationships. The journey of self-discovery is intertwined with forgiveness, leading us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. Follow Divine Marketing Pro for more personal growth.
Ariel Chime, Authentic Divine Marketing, https colon forward slash forward slash
So you have
bit.ly
15 minutes.
forward Divine Chime. Divine Chime. If you want marketing tools and resources and videos and other marketing items that's unique to you, that is going to boost you and take you to the next level, you want to check out Ariel Crime. chime at Authentic Divine Marketing, https://bit.ly/divine chime. So check her out and tell her you heard it on the Vera Thomas Show. All right. Now, I played that specifically because how does forgiveness tie in with grief? And I'm going to give you the floor and talk about that and have you talk about
Yes.
that.
Yes, that's a really, really good and important question. Forgiveness can be hard, but I know for me personally, by taking steps to forgive those that have wronged me, a situation where there's been a job, a person, someone living, someone not living, but forgiving them, even if they didn't know that I forgave them, if I didn't go to them face to face or wasn't able to even voice it like audibly, realizing that was one part of going on my healing journey. And realizing that I know it's hard, I know it's not easy. Like I said, that person that I dated him, but I knew that I needed to forgive him so I can move on with my life because I was tired of carrying that weight of him. Even with my father, when he passed, my dad was pretty much, to just say, just abusive. And in the midst of everything, and even at his funeral, I kind of felt like a ghost. For my dad, his wedding pictures were shown at his funeral, a wedding that I wasn't invited to, that I wasn't able to attend. And in his funeral, there was a poster board that said loving husband, loving son, loving man, but they didn't put on their loving father. And I was an only child. And so in that, I had to stare at that for hours. And when I went up to my dad and I had my time with him at his viewing, I told him, I said, I love you and I forgive you. And I said, thank you. And that was all. And of course, it's not like, oh, I just forgave him and my life is better. And it's like how they do in the movies, where you forgive someone in 5 minutes, your life is great and you move on. But like, it's been stated, I love that statement. Forgiveness is not easy, but it is necessary. And for me, I said, in this last year, I said, I really want to be intentional about healing, but to take steps to heal, I need to forgive and take intentional steps, not just say, oh, I'm just going to forgive them, or, oh, it's just, I can never forgive that person. How can you forgive them? But really saying no, but to heal, forgiveness is part of that process. I know it hurts. I know that it's hard. I know that people have had devastatingly horrible things happen to them. I've heard things that would just keep you up at night. But in the midst of that, really praying, because we have God, we can say, okay, wow, Jesus, he died on the cross for us. And he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And I'm like, if he can forgive people that sinned against him, millions of people that sinned against him, then I can take steps to forgive those that have hurt me and that have done me wrong. And like I said, it's not easy and it takes time and it is a process, but we can't do it alone. We need God's help.
Absolutely. And Fuchina, thank you for being here. She asked, how did that make you feel at the funeral when you saw how did you feel when you during that time? And were you his only child?
I'm an only child, yes. And
You,
so in the midst of it, so just a little bit of background really quick. When my dad passed away, he had prostate cancer. And I thought that that was what was going to be what he was going to pass away from. And he actually ended up having a massive heart attack. And
oh
so in that,
wow.
I have a step, and they were only married for 4 years. And it was very clear that she was always preferred. She was the theme of the funeral. So it was her, yeah, the theme of the funeral had her name in it. I'll just leave it at that. And so in the midst of it, when he passed away, was trying to comfort her, deal with all of the things that came up. And in the midst of everything, it was sudden and yet expected, like I was expecting him to pass away. My dad was only 70.
He was
So, it was
70
expected. I thought he was going to pass away from, he passed away on
wow.
my,
On your
yeah, he was 70 and
birthday?
then passed away on my daughter's birthday.
Oh
So we have
wow.
that to live with. Oh, my daughter's birthday. Yeah, my daughter's
Wow.
birthday. And so, just in the midst of it, it still made me feel like I wasn't seen. And that's kind of how I felt like my whole life, like no matter what I did, it was never enough for my dad. And in the midst of it, just like no matter what I did, it just seemed like it was never enough. And so there's still those wounds that still run deep. There's still those grief triggers. There's still the things that happened. God is not
Yes.
like my dad. And I've had to really hold on to that. I still have my father wounds, but realizing that everything that my dad didn't do, that God is just
God.
reminding me that he is a
Yes.
loving father and he's there. And it's still hard to relate to him, as
Yes.
my father. But in all of that, I said, if I don't forgive him, this is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. There's still so many
Yes.
questions that I have, so many things that were hidden, so many things that we still don't know why and everything. And there's still this strained relationship with my stepmom, but just saying I've had to really work hard on forgiving both of them. So, yeah.
Well, let me.
But thank you. For your
Yes, Fuchina, she says, wow, so sorry you had to go through that. And then she says, you are such an awesome woman. And yes, she is. Yes, she is. So let me ask you, so do you have a relationship with your mom? Can you hear me? Did you look? Okay. Do you have a relationship with your mother?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Sorry, cut out just a little bit, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I do. I do have a relation with my mother, but it's, it's always that, but it's the thing where are rebuilding our relationship. Things have happened that have come up, and she's made statements that she felt like I haven't been there enough for her and that different things. But for me, I've grown up with my mom who's always been chronically ill. So I remember being 7 years old, 6 years old, and being in the emergency room with her for still to this day taking care of her, but still setting boundaries, setting limits, and having to forgive her too. And so, really, realizing I'm in a season of just forgiving those in my life because realizing that they did the best they could with what they had. They could have done better, but in that I'm trying to be a better parent than my parents. And that's how
Yeah.
God is showing me, like, for example, I'm making space. Like when my daughter is facing something like recently, she's only 7, but, her best friend at school kind of disappeared for a while, then came back and disappeared. And I said, you know what? I said, I understand that must be really hard for you. And I said, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to be honest. And it's okay to grieve your friend leaving. She's only 7. And you think, oh, well, she's 7. She'll get over it.
Oh,
But I want to
no.
make that space that I didn't have when I was a kid where I couldn't speak up.
Beautiful.
No one ever asked me anything. Like my mom. My mom said, she's like, oh, you never asked for anything. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not good that I never asked for anything because I knew that there was no point in asking. But with my daughter, I try
Wow.
and do something different and try and be a better parent and validate what she's feeling when she's going through things because she's going through a lot. For her to have started having seizures when she was 1 year
Yes.
old and trying to explain why she's different or why she can't play soccer or why we don't do sleepovers or why she has to get lab work every couple of months or why, for her, it's her memory, her short-term memory is impacted. So why, she can't remember things. And it's hard explaining that to a 7-year-old.
Yes.
But,
Well, but
with
you know what?
God,
With
it's
God
it's only
and
God.
your not on well, it's God, but it's also you recognizing what you don't want your child to experience because of what you experience. It's also having it takes a special parent to be able to do what you're doing. And but the thing is, your training as a coach and as a grief counselor or coach, that is allowing you to use those tools with your daughter. And that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It really is. And oh my goodness, I
Thank
can't
you.
believe, yes, you are very special. And I thank you for being a guest
Thank
on
you.
my show because what you have shared tonight, people need to hear. And before we leave, we're going to restate the stages of grief. And why don't we bounce back and forth? Okay. The first one is denial. This is
Mhm.
not happening. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe they're gone. I can't believe I lost my job. I can't believe this relationship is over. I can't believe my marriage is over. I can't believe what's going on. Denial. It's real and it's normal when you have gone through great grief. Second one, your turn.
Yes, the second one is anger. So it's the yeah, being angry. Oh yes, that second one is anger, and realize that anger is a normal human feeling. We're not robots, and so we're going to feel emotions, and you're going to go through those waves of emotions when you're going through grief. Like I said, a roller coaster of emotions, and it's okay. It's what you do with your anger, how long you let yourself be angry, and try not to get stuck in that angry mode, and actually, working through that anger.
Absolutely. And we only have a few seconds. So the next few are after the anger, then we want to bargain. What can I do? Why can't they come back? What can I do to keep my job? How can I maintain this relationship even though I know it's not good for me? How can I maintain it? The bargaining. Okay, and then after bargaining,
Yes, we
what
have depression. Sorry about my background, the light,
oh,
but
okay.
overall, just depression really quick, and just realizing depression is also normal. It's also human, but reach out to help, to get help, because it's hard to go through on your own, and you don't have to face it alone.
And then there's acceptance. And with acceptance comes hope. And when you've got hope, you can hope yourself through grief. Now, also be aware that you may go back and forth between all of these stages. You may have acceptance, but then something triggers you and you go back to the bargaining, or something triggers you and you get angry, and then you come back to acceptance. So you can go back and forth and continue. Well, listen, we have ran out of time. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for being here, and God bless you. We're going to visit this again because grief is very, very, very
Yeah,
real, and the stages are real, and what you're going through is real. And don't allow other people to tell you how
yeah,
you need to grieve. You know how you need to grieve. And if you need to get help, then do so. If you need to get help, contact Hope Legacy Grief Support at 972-292-8397. 972-292-8397, or go to www.hopeslegacygs, which stands for Grief Support. Hope Legacy GS as in Sam.com. Well, listen, I'm putting that in the comments so that people will be able to see this, and get in touch with you if they're feeling overwhelmed with grief. And again, thank you so much for being here. And if you don't mind holding on before we leave so that I can close out. Okay, so I'll
of
see you in a
course.
minute. Don't leave. Listen, thank you all for being here. God bless you. And we will see you on Thursday. So God bless. Bye bye.
The